All right, it's recording this time. What the fuck? All right, let's step into the squared circle and let's talk about A24's The Iron Claw. I was supposed to go see this morning with my co-host Metz. Metz is a huge wrestling fan over the last year, is now actually getting into training to start physically wrestling. I have always been conscious of pro wrestling, connected but unconnected. I've never been a fan, but I was friends with and still am friends with so many people who just absolutely love it and know everything about it. So I've absorbed through osmosis some things. I know when I was a kid, my neighbor was Jimmy Superfly Snuka, who got away with murdering his girlfriend, allegedly. I met Junkyard Dog at an airport one time in Houston. I used to watch the Rockin' Wrestlers cartoon in the 80s. I know who, the big names are, and when I ran the comic book shop, we had guys in for signings and stuff like that. I know a lot of things, but I don't really. I had never heard of the Von Erich family until 2020. I was asked to rewrite a script and turn it into a wrestling horror movie. And I was like, oh shit, I should probably learn something about wrestling so I get the terminology correct and all that. So I started with the Beyond the Mat documentary about Mick Foley and worked my way into Dark Side of the Ring. And when getting to Dark Side of the Ring is when I discovered the one about the Von Erich family. And I was like, this is crazy and sad and like it doesn't seem real. And and the movie just reiterates that. It stars Zac Efron, who, I knew him as the High School Musical boy. He'd make an amazing He-Man in this movie. The haircut and the physique, he would be an incredible He-Man. I was never really sure of him when it came to his acting range, but he is so perfectly understated in this movie. This is a movie where it's not really about wrestling. The wrestling is never played as sports entertainment. There's not the glitz and the glamour of like a no holds bar, even with Hulk Hogan, or even the Mickey Rourke movie The Wrestler. This is a body horror, really. Like the same way I said that like Showgirls is body horror. It's not I'm not talking about it in the Cronenberg style, but I'm talking about what we do to the physical form for perfection, for achieving a goal, or almost possession-like drive. This movie is about toxic masculinity, but not in the way that you would think. I was waiting for, because again, watching the documentary, I know what happens to these boys. You're waiting for the overbearing father to like be raining down hell on these guys, and them training, and the drugs and the alcohol and the women and all that kind of stuff. And while drugs and alcohol and women are a part of it, it's so in the background. It's so muted and below the surface, much like many of these performances, because it's not really about that. It's about the father, who is he's the dude from the opening scene of Justice League, but he's probably best known to people as the other cop from Mindhunter. I know him as the Native American guy with the long hair from Creepshow 2. I'm going to go to Hollywood, and this hair is going to get me made, laid, and paid. Turns out he's not really Native American. But yeah, so he plays the father in this. Maura Tierney, probably best known from News Radio, plays the mother. He was a wrestler in the pre-WWF era when they were territories, and he was a big shot, but he always said that he got screwed. He didn't reach his goal because of politics and all this. So he's implanted in his kids to work towards having the championship belt in their house. And and you go, oh, okay, cool. Like, this is a story of brothers working to achieve this goal. But really, what it is it's people putting their lives and their bodies on the line and on hold, and their relationships and their wants and their needs for someone else's dream. And that is incredibly sad, and dark, and this is, I'm recording this 2 days before Christmas. Right on Christmas last year, I went to go see The Whale, the Brendan Fraser movie, which was another body horror film, and just having an emotional breakdown in my car while filming the review for that, and then getting made fun of by some dude re-editing my video to make me look like that fucking the dude whose dad was a movie producer, and no girls wanted to date him, so he shot people. Like, that's what I was dealing with. So Aaron Rodgers, no, that was the football player, whatever, I don't know. But so I was gonna do this review in my car, and I was like, nah, I don't fucking need that shit. I'm gonna come home and do this. You have these brothers, Zac Efron being Kevin Von Erich, and he's kind of the golden boy until his other brothers kind of get involved, and you slowly watch his father putting more attention into his one brother, because his one brother jumps on the microphone and can control the crowd. Or the other brother comes back from the Olympics, because the Olympics get canceled in that year in '79 as they were boycotting the Russians. So now he becomes the golden child. He goes on to the pro wrestling and all this kind of stuff. But the one brother, he's kind of softer. He wants to be a musician, and the mom talks about how the dad used to be a musician, and the dad gets all embarrassed by that. It's all these people kind of living underneath someone else's shadow and shaping themselves into what this man thinks that they should be, because they think that it's for the greater good. It's these brothers who just love each other and just want it to be family, and just watching them die off one by one, they believe that the family's cursed. To the point where when Zac Efron and Lily James in the movie have their first baby, they don't give the baby the Von Erich name. Von Erich was the mother's maiden name, and the mother talks about how her family had all these, always felt cursed, and they lost a brother when he was 5 years old. He had brittle bone syndrome, so he died, and then the other brother goes to Japan. He's going to become the next big thing. He has a ruptured intestine and dies in Japan. The other brother finally, gets somewhere and then loses a foot in a motorcycle accident and then kills himself. The other brother, kind of the weaker one, who, Zac Efron early in the movie was like, can you tell dad to go easier on him? And the mother is just like, you guys, you figure that out amongst yourselves. The parents are always putting it onto them, but it's the illusion of free will. They're not actually in charge of themselves or their lives. They're living for their father's dream. And, and then that brother gets, he has a shoulder injury. And when he goes under the knife for surgery, he gets toxic shock syndrome and goes into a coma. When he wakes up, he's not all there anymore. And he winds up taking his own life. And it's just like, and Zac Efron is like, he tells Lily James when they're on their date, he's like, all I want is, to be with my brothers and for us to live on a ranch and all be together. And you just see it slowly wearing on this guy, that he does believe that there is something out there, some force, some disease that is taking them from each other. And it's really, really sad. And one of the things about this movie, like I said, about them not shooting the wrestling matches to be glitzy and glamoury and all this kind of stuff, even the brother, the kind of musical brother, says when they're at the table, he's like, oh, did you see all those different camera angles for the matches? And the dad is like, it's not about the camera angle, it's about the wrestling. And that's kind of a little meta commentary on the entire thing. Is it's what's going on is between those two people inside that space at that point. And is, wrestling, yes, it's sports entertainment, but they're putting their bodies at risk doing these things, and the amount of training that you need to do, and finesse that you need to do, and one roll the wrong way can end your life. Like people have been paralyzed and all this kind of stuff. It's crazy. But like you get to the point where Zac Efron doesn't want to come home to his wife and to his kid because he doesn't want them to be affected by whatever whatever this thing is. And you get to a point at the end where he sells off the company and he breaks the cycle, and he goes to just be with his wife and his sons and his family, and breaks the cycle of abuse, really. I mean, I don't want to say that because I understand the father's drive to want his sons to be the best, and part of that will come back on him, and he'll feel some sort of achievement through them for the things that he couldn't achieve. But just that idea in the end of Zac Efron's watching his two sons play football, and it reminds him of him playing football with his brothers earlier in the movie, and he just starts breaking down in tears, and it's the first time that he breaks. Because if you watch this movie and you look at it and you go, okay, well, it's all very subdued. There's not, the camera sits. The cinematography is beautiful, but it's stark. Everything about it is very dialed down, because they are living with that burden of them, they have to be this thing. They're known in Texas as the greatest wrestling family. They have to be that thing. They have to be this thing to their father. They believe that they love wrestling, but they don't, and it goes to the idea that you can love something that will never love you back, and that is actually hurting you. And it's when he finally breaks free of that, and at the same time, his mother sits down and she starts painting. And the father's like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm painting. He's like, well, what did you make for dinner? And she's like, nothing. She's living for herself in that moment. They've lost everything. She's lost all of her sons. The father's pushed away Zac Efron's character. I guess I should say spoilers, but he's sitting in the field and he's just crying his eyes out, and it's just beautiful. And his sons come up to him and they're like, why are you crying? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry you have to see me like this. Men aren't supposed to cry. And the two little boys are like, we cry all the time. And he's just like, I used to be a brother. And his sons are like, we'll be your brothers. It really, really affected me. It really made me think about the last few years. I don't have a super close relationship with my brother. I love my brother. I love my half sister, but we don't communicate very well together. My father hasn't spoken to me in years. My mother and I are starting to reform our relationship and stuff like that. But a lot of the reasons that I am the way I am is how I was raised. My mother was more distant, and I've said this before in other reviews, so I'm not like saying anything, oh, it's so fucking embarrassing. Why are you talking like this? Telling all your shit to the internet. I don't fucking care, man. I don't fucking care. My dad was always very much like, you don't cry, you don't show emotion, you don't ask for help. Men's job is to be, this thing. So growing up, being more sensitive and empathetic was a bad thing, and it taught me to just keep my self bottled up and angry and projecting my flaws onto other people. It probably helped me with having like a sense of humor about the stuff, because I've never liked who I am. I still don't like who I am, and I pay a therapist and I take medication to try to get through all this kind of stuff. But you look at watching this movie, it just opened up a lot of things. Didn't make me want to wrestle, although I wish I was in better shape. But it just showed me that, there are ways that we act and we deal with situations and we treat other people in that moment, thinking that it's for a goal, or thinking that they're going to understand when it's all said and done, and then finding that that's not the case. And all you do is you get to a certain point in your life and you look back and you see all the broken pieces around you that didn't have to be that way if you just said what was hurting, or how you felt, or instead of just putting it on someone else. um, and I think about that when it comes to film stuff. Like, I love movies, I love filmmaking, I love writing, but how much easier would my life be had I not gotten involved with any of this shit, or gave up a while ago? I there would still be people in my life who hate me now, or there wouldn't be people on Reddit who every day like to remind me what a fucking failure I am. Things would be very, very different. Would a part of me feel like it was missing? Yeah, because I do still get a charge out of creating, or getting other people involved when it comes to creating. The idea of people who maybe want to act or write or whatever, giving them an opportunity to do something that they wouldn't have in other places. There's something exciting about that. But I think about it a lot, that like, this thing that's inside of me that I do because I want people to tell me that I'm good, or I'm smart, or I'm funny, or whatever. That validation that I'm seeking from other people comes from being a kid and how I was raised. Because my parents had no desire for the arts. So figuring out still how to marry those things together and still be happy, but now more so to verbalize the things that I was too afraid in the past to verbalize. Life would be a lot easier had I just spoken up in the past, and I didn't, and that really opened up something in this movie. Is any of this making sense? This is a wrestling movie. I don't know, just that idea of repression, and of trying to validate yourself through other people's eyes, and breaking cycles of abuse. This was a really, really good movie, and it didn't even have to be a wrestling movie. It's a father and son movie. It could be these messages could be through a lot of different lenses. It was just fed through this lens of this horrible series of tragedies that befell this one family. And yeah, I never really thought much about the High School Musical kid. I didn't really dig the Ted Bundy movie he did. But he's really, really good in this. He transformed his body. The movie starts in black and white when the dad's a wrestler, and gives you a very Raging Bull style vibe to it. There's even a very Scorsese-esque scene outside of like the arena, where it's sort of like the long tracking shot in Goodfellas as well. I don't know. I like how stark this movie was. I like how earthy this movie was, but also sort of ethereal and hopeful, and the great lengths that the human body can go to, and that where the human mind goes and the human heart goes, and it says a lot more than just dudes in speedos, rolling on each other, basically. But no, this was a really, really good movie. Very sad, very understated. And again, it's that idea of body horror. It's that idea of toxic masculinity, but not in a way that you would think. So if you are a wrestling fan, if you do know the story of this family, I would definitely say check this one out. There's a lot of different wrestling stories that I've heard that are super interesting. And I'm glad that while this is still technically a sports movie, it isn't really the crux of it. It is more about the heart, of the family, and it was really, really, really good, and very, very sad. And I got to stop going to see sad movies around Christmas, because I work every holiday and I don't really have any family around, so I get really lonely and sad on Christmas. But this was good. This was cathartic, because I left this, while I got misty-eyed. It wasn't to the degree of where I was last year with The Whale, which I think means that I've made some progress emotionally. So yeah, that's it. Iron Claw. Oh, and the Iron Claw is about their finishing move. When in wrestling. So I was like, in case you're wondering what the fuck the name was about, probably not. You're just like, here he is, bitching and complaining about the people who don't care about him anymore. new people do care about me. Old people too. And and hopefully next year when we do our Christmas review, it'll be something fun and funny, and I'll be happy, and nobody will think I'm Aaron Rodgers. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's I don't know. I don't even remember what the dude's name is. All right, guys, that's a good one. Have a Merry Christmas. Have a happy Yule Tide, whatever. Hanukkah's over. I think Kwanzaa's still coming up. Solstice, whatever. Just be safe out there. And I will. I'll talk to you all in the new year.